Even though the idea of drawing out rhythms and counting in beats is incredibly simple, we can use that idea to make some really cool rhythms. Rhythms that we might have heard in other places, like in music we really like. In this lesson, we're going to try and produce a drum beat. Now, if you've ever seen a drum kit, you'll know that it has lots of different components to it. So it's not all drums are the same size. You've got the kick drum, which the player plays by hitting a pedal, which hits a beater against the biggest drum, the one that sits on the floor, and then so that sounds like this. This is just on my keyboard, but you can hear the sound of the drum there. They've also got a snare drum, which comes from marching bands and things like that, but that's been included into the drum kit. You've also got the other drums that sit in around the drum kit, and those are called toms, and they sound something like this. And then you've got the shiny things that make a fantastically loud sound, the cymbals. You've got lots of different types of cymbals. You've got that which is just a crash cymbal, it's called. It makes that kind of really recognisable sound. And you've also got the little hi-hat cymbal, which sits on a stand, and it's two pieces of metal placed on top of one another, and the player is able to either have them pressed tightly together so they make a sound like this, or so it sounds quite sort of closed and contained, or they're able to release the pressure and allow the cymbals to rattle around a little bit more, and it sounds like this. Or even totally open, so they sort of bang together and last quite a long time. So those are the three different sounds a hi-hat can make. Closed, sort of middling, a little bit more open, and then finally this open sound there. And so what the player is able to do is able to combine rhythms that they're playing on each of those different components to make a drum beat. And, drum kit beats form the foundations of pretty much all rock and pop music. If you turn the radio on, chances are there'll be somebody there playing on a drum kit, and all they're doing is taking different rhythms and putting them together to make a drum beat. And that's what we're going to try and do right now. So let's start with the most basic element of our drum kit, which is the kick drum. Now I want this drum beat to have a kind of driving quality, so when we want that, often we accent every single beat, so we want a kick drum sound on every single beat of the music. This will be very familiar in dance music. Lots of dance music has that, lots of rock music does this. It just makes the beat incredibly clear, because what the kick drum is doing is it's just marking out the beat. It's almost acting like a metronome, ticking away, but in this case booming away every beat. So let's just try and play the kick drum part of this drum kit. Oh, Mr. T off drum kit. There we go. Let's just play the kick drum part of this drum kit rhythm, and it's going to sound like this. That's what the kick drum sounds like. And I'm going to count in, so let's not forget our count in of 4 beats. I'm going to handle it maybe a little bit faster than we were doing in the last lesson. I can pick the speed because I don't need a metronome. I can just pick something that feels kind of comfortable and go with that. So I'd like to play this rhythm at something like 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So those are my beats. Tick, 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 tick. And I'm going to play 16 beats, and there's going to be a kick drum sounding on each of those 16 beats. So let's have a go and see what it sounds like. So let's get our count in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. The sound of the kick drum is quite percussive. It doesn't last forever. It's not like a string instrument that can just play and play and play. The kick drum on the drum kit just makes a really sort of really thudding sound, and then dies away, and that's fine. This just indicates to us that we need to play a sound at the beginning of each of the beats. So whenever I say a number in my counting, I'm going to play the sound of the kick drum. The next thing I want to add is the snare drum. The snare drum is really good for picking out accents. We say an accent is a kind of special beat or something that we want to really draw out or give the music a particular rhythmic feel. The snare is really, really good for doing that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play on all of what we call the offbeats. So we generally say that beats are on then off. So the first beat might be on, the second one off. So I'm going to play in every other beat, I'm going to play the snare. Let's try and line these up. So you see these are happening at the same time. Very, very simple. And so on every offbeat, so every beat we're going to get a kick drum, and then every offbeat we're going to get the kick drum and the snare drum together. So you see these line up, and so they happen at the same time. Let's have a listen to see what that sounds like. I'm just going to count in 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So now we're starting to get somewhere. We've got something that sounds a little bit more exciting than when the kick drum was just playing on its own. But to make this really cool, I think we need to add one final element, and that's going to be the hi-hat. So let's just find a colour for the hi-hat. I think purple is a good one. A really good thing about the hi-hat is it can make two different sounds. Here's it closed with the two cymbals clasped very firmly together, and then we can also open the two cymbals up so they can play freely. And a lot of drummers use the difference in sound they can make to produce interesting effects in the drum beats they're playing. So we're going to do exactly the same thing here. I'm just going to invent my own little notation to show the difference between open and close. So close is going to be a line like the other ones, and open is going to be a circle. I'm going to draw a circle in the space instead of a line, but it still means that I'm going to fill that beat with that open sound. And I'm going to do that on every third beat in each group of 4. So here's 1, 2, open, 1, 2, 3 is going to be open, and then 4. So we've now got 3 different rhythmic elements that we're going to draw together to make our finished drum beat. And let's see what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And so starting with really, really simple elements, we can build something actually quite complicated, and that sounded relatively good. Like we could put that on a rock song and probably people would say that was quite a good rhythm to have there. You can of course have a go at this yourself. All you need to do is find 3 things that sound different when you hit them. So imagine if you had a bottle, a piece of wood, and something that you could shake perhaps. Using those 3 different sounds, you could draw a similar table to one that I've got here, or even better, have 3 different people and work together as a team to produce more exciting rhythms. Now if we look a little bit closer at this rhythm, we'll see some patterns starting to emerge. So we've got our 16 beat piece of music here, and in fact it's 4 copies of the same pattern. Let's just have a look at that. So if we were to draw it in here, if we just try and draw these brackets around our 4 beats, we'll see that every 4 beats we get the same pattern. So just draw another one in here. And there's one more, comes in here. There we go. And then there'll be one at the end here. Each of these chunks of rhythm, if you like, are exactly the same. That we can look at each part and see that they are exactly the same. So the kick drum is just happening all the time, so that's really easy to compare. They're always the same. And the snare drum is happening on the 2nd and 4th beats of every group. We can see that there. So there's always a gap on the 1st and 3rd beats of each 4-beat group, and then there's a snare drum hit on the 2nd and 4th beats. And then in the hi-hat we've got this interesting pattern of closed and open sounds happening exactly the same way every time. So the 1st and 2nd ones are closed, and then we have an open one, and then we have a closed one, and that happens as we carry on. Closed, closed, open, closed, 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 open, closed. So what we've done here was we've broken down our 16-beat piece of music into 4 groups of 4 beats that are all actually the same. So once I've got that 4-beat pattern established, actually I don't need my graph anymore in many ways. What I could do is just say I'm going to repeat that pattern until it's the end of the music. So I'm going to play a new piece of music which isn't really represented by this 16-beat diagram anymore, because actually I'm going to keep it going for much, much longer. And all I'm going to do is take that 4-beat pattern and keep repeating it over and over again. So let's have a go at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as it turns out, repeating rhythmic patterns are absolutely central to pretty much all Western music, and it's just a really good way for us to group beats together into units that we can control, because we can keep those 4-beat groups of patterns going as a kind of foundation for all the other rhythms and interesting things that we're doing. And so the next few lessons are going to be looking at exactly that, ways that we can take our beats that we're putting into the music and group them together into regular repeating patterns.